Hey everyone, we'll get started in just a few minutes. The Zoom link that was sent out, actually Zoom had changed it for us, so I had to just do a resend very quickly. So just give everyone a few minutes on that.
Hey, Sammy.
Oh, hey Steve, how are you?
How's mom?
She's good. She'll be on in a second.
Hey, Seamus, how are you?
Good. Give me one second, actually.
All righty.
Good evening.
Hi.
Sorry, technical difficulties with another board member who also happens to be my mother. So I'll give everyone like 2 more minutes before we get started.
I wish. Really?
And can whoever's in the background just like mute themselves like that? That has their yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna mute Howard. Excuse me. Okay, I guess we'll just get started since it's 7:05. Master. And that's another person asking about the Zoom link and other stuff. Uh, Welcome everyone to the February 2025 endorsement meeting of the Independent Neighborhood Democrats. I am President Seamus Campbell. Before we begin, as always, the leadership of the Independent Neighborhood Democrats welcomes debate and discussion on topics of concern to the members of the community by candidates for office and others. IND believes in the right to free political speech, but believes that strong, personal attacks, profanity, intimidating or threatening gestures or words, attempts to silence speakers, or similar inappropriate behaviors are unacceptable, and individuals engaging in such behavior will be asked to leave. Um, with that, I'm just going to take a few housekeeping notes here. First off, everyone here, please make sure that your Zoom name matches your real name. This is
Wait,
for
okay,
attendance
it's called
purposes.
your name. Thank you,
Uh,
Connie.
and I'm gonna have to say this. Also, if you're not talking, please mute yourself. Uh, and that includes all candidates, as was just the case. Uh, if there are multiple people like in attendance with you, I know like Hal and Ira are sharing a computer. Please change your date, Zoom name to match that. Um, this is all just for attendance purposes. So this way we can make sure that you're here and we can send you a ballot when we get to that point. Um, and if you are uh, joining on Facebook, please also just leave a comment there so we know that you're here, and we'll check that later on as well. So, and additionally, with ballots, sample ballots were sent out earlier this week to everyone who would have been eligible. They were sent out multiple times to several people. Uh, so if anyone didn't vote, well, you can check your email. Um,
What was that again?
uh, okay, Larry, got to mute you, sir. Last but not least, this is a personal note of privilege. As many of you know, my father passed away just about 3 weeks ago. There's also the husband of one of our board members, Bridget Farrell. I just like to say a huge thank you to everyone who sent their condolences. People called, texted, emailed, came to the funeral, more visiting hours as well. I especially appreciated the flowers that IND sent. I know Birch did as well. It really did help the two of us get through a very tough time. And I just wanted to send my sincere gratitude to this club, which frankly is my family, the family I've chosen. So thank you all. Uh, with that, okay, so we're gonna get things started here. So also I just want to give a huge shout out to just a recap of our Public Advocate and Comptroller Forum, which many of you attended or watched online. I'm sure many of you saw the fireworks that happened, uh, and the fun that was there. Huge shout out to Karen for helping us secure the space and just coordinating with Brooklyn Law School there. And also, I just want to give a special thanks to Danielle Zuckerman, especially with everything that was happening in for me and my family. She really stepped up to the plate and helped to get a lot of the load off of me. So I'm really eternally grateful to the two of them for all their hard work. With that, so tonight we'll be hearing from candidates for City Council District 35, District Attorney, um, Mayor for the ones who couldn't attend our forum, and civil court judge countywide. So we're going to be jumping all around. Some of the candidates did reach out to me saying specific times, and so they're getting the times that they requested. I'm trying to schedule around there, but I will let everyone know. And I've told rules are basically for candidates. Mayoral candidates are getting 10 minutes. Everyone else is getting 15. Basically because we try to give as much time as we try to give 15 minutes for our forum, and so it's more of this way that we're also not here till midnight, which was almost the case last year, if people recall that. Uh, that all said, I'm gonna kick things off by introducing our first speaker this evening, City Council member Crystal Hudson, who currently represents the 35th District. Oh, Senate Councilmember Hudson, you want to unmute and introduce yourself and then answer questions from the audience?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Crystal Hudson. I'm the council member for District 35, representing the neighborhoods of Crown Heights, Prospect Heights, Fort Greene, and Clinton Hill. When I first ran for office, it was because of the lived experience that I had as a caregiver for my mother who had Alzheimer's disease. It was through that experience that I was propelled into public service. I wanted to make sure that other families didn't have to go through what my family had to go through, just trying to navigate bureaucracy and government. And I'm really proud of the work that I've been able to do over the last few years. I'm chair of the Aging Committee, which I'm very proud to be. The speaker did a wonderful job making assignments of committee chairs based on our lived experiences. And so through that role, I've been able to pass a number of pieces of legislation from my age in place legislative package. One notable piece of legislation has been expanding the right to counsel to any older adult, regardless of income. So usually you have to be within the federal poverty limits, but we know there are so many older adults living on fixed incomes who are facing housing insecurity. And because of pensions and retirement savings, they might make too much to qualify. And so it's really important to me across the board that we're able to give more people more access to legal representation. Another resolution that I have currently in the council is to do the same thing for those facing immigration proceedings, giving right to counsel and expanding right to counsel to folks regardless of immigration status. And one other piece of legislation that I'm really proud about is the work that I've done in my first year in particular, addressing the Black maternal mortality crisis, which was a piece of legislation that came directly out of my Black agenda for New York City. It gives everyone access to doula information and healthcare for anybody giving birth. And I always say my Black agenda is inclusive and not exclusive. But when you actually legislate for the communities that are most marginalized, whether Black communities, older adult communities, or immigrant communities, then everybody benefits. And so those are a few things that I'm particularly proud of that I've been able to achieve over the last few years. We are moving lots of legislation as progressives, proud progressives in the New York City Council. I think at a time like this that we're in with absent leadership, both in the city and nationally, we need to make sure that we're shoring up progressive leadership. And that's what I look forward to bringing back to my district for the next 4 years, if of course I have the support of IND. Thank you so much.
Any questions for the council member?
Now, ask.
Any questions?
Seamus, I'll take a question. I'll do a question.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Crystal. How are you? Hope all's
Hi
well.
there. Thank you.
I just have a quick, we've been through so much in the last 4 years. So what do you think was the one thing that maybe the top thing that you think the Democrats could have done better over the last 4 years? And how are we repositioning ourselves around that issue?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think we could have done just about everything better. I think firstly, just being honest with ourselves, honest with the electorate, honest with the American people about the challenges we're facing and navigating tough times. As I mentioned, I'm chair of the aging committee, and so I wasn't one of the people who was, advocating to get Joe Biden to step down. However, I thought that we should have just been honest about the state that he's in and sort of own the fact that he's an older adult and he has changed over the years and he's not as sharp as he was. But of course, when Kamala Harris was the Democratic nominee, I proudly endorsed her and supported her. And I think we took a lot for granted, including folks in the electorate. I think we assume that because we're, good people and have good values, that everybody is going to be with us and stand with us. And I think Trump only gained what he did because so many of our people didn't show up. So I think it's also important to recognize that he didn't, and I know I'm speaking to the choir here, but he didn't win by a mandate as they claim. It was not a landslide as they claim. But our people just didn't show up. They didn't show up because they weren't inspired, and because we weren't being honest. We weren't being truthful even about the war, and so many other things. And so I think we need to really look inward, double down, and also look to new leadership across the board, to younger leadership, to people who are actively out here doing the work, who have great platforms and opportunities, instead of reaching back into the same old coffers that we always reach to for leadership. I think this is an opportunity for us to elevate some new faces and new names. So
Okay, great. Thank you.
thank you.
Dana,
You called me?
you have your hand up. You have a
Oh,
question for
yes,
the council
yes.
member?
I have a question. As your mother had Alzheimer's, and are you aware of the difference between public Medicare and Advantage Care and the plight of New York City retirees who need council member to support them and pass a bill to protect their public Medicare?
Yes, absolutely. I am familiar with the issue. The court ruled, and I think previously the first go round with the legislation, the council made very clear that this was an issue between the unions and the administration, and we wanted to make sure that the courts were able to make their ruling or their judgment. And so the courts have done that. The courts have made it clear that the retirees should have access to the healthcare that they were promised and the healthcare that they're owed. And we should absolutely do everything in our power to make sure that the administration honors that. And so that's where I stand. Thank you. You're muted.
Oh, Dana, you're muted if you had any follow-up on that. So, uh, any other questions for the council member? We've got 2-3 minutes left.
Oh. I just wanted to say that even current employees of New York City, it would create more people applying for jobs if they knew their Medicare was protected.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Thanks so much. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for your question.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Well, thank you so much, council member.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Great. So let's move right along here. So next up we have former comptroller and now candidate for New York City Mayor Scott Stringer. Comptroller Stringer, are you available?
Yes.
You just muted yourself.
How am I doing now?
You're good.
Well, Seamus, first, I want to start off by just offering my condolences to you and your family. And I just want to say to all of you how grateful I am that you're giving me this opportunity tonight, because I couldn't attend the original forum because that was our campaign kickoff. So thank you all very much. And also thank you all for your support for me over the years in some very tough races. I want to thank so many of you. But look, this campaign is unlike any other we've faced. I know many of you have been following the news today about Donald Trump, about Eric Adams, about law enforcement resignations, basically tied to Trump and Adams' deal that will impact our city in the most horrific ways. And I just want to say to all of you that we have to win this mayor's race. And my candidacy is not just about saying the right things, making proposals, and voting rights, and voting the right way. My campaign is about offering 30 years of progressive experience, taking on the very tough fights, because that's exactly what I'm going to have to do as mayor. When I was in the assembly, I ended empty seat voting, as you know, and fought for rules reform. It was a courageous thing to do, and we were successful. As Manhattan Borough President, I initiated community-based planning, community board reform, making sure that speculators would not push out people in Manhattan, and set the standard for what a borough president can do. As controller, we did some of the most important work on climate change, divesting $4 billion We divested from gun manufacturers, divested from private prisons. This work was not easy, and we had tremendous opposition. The next mayor has to do the big things, the things that matter to New Yorkers, to really build Mitchell-Lama 2.0 and build affordable housing, to tackle the education crisis with our kids. My kids are public school kids. I see it every day. I also see immigrant parents not sending kids to our school because they're afraid. A mayor must champion these issues. But it's even more than that. We have to align policing with mental health initiatives, all the things that we care about. But I say to you that we can't have a mayor with training wheels. We need a mayor who will do the big things. And that's why I decided to run again. And I'm hoping that many of you will consider supporting me.
Are there any questions? Matt?
We're currently watching our current mayor choose one course of action for how to deal with the Trump administration. But our next mayor is going to have to thread a pretty dangerous needle based on a hostile Congress and a hostile presidency. As mayor, how do you propose that you're going to work with the Trump administration, both to protect the rights of New Yorkers, but also protect, the economy and all the different kind of funding that we have here? How are you going to thread that needle?
Well, this isn't my first rodeo with Trump. I fought very hard during Trump 1 to protect the interests of the city, working with then Mayor de Blasio, working to make sure we understood the financial numbers and the possible cuts that the Trump administration could put forth. Today, I suggested that what we have to do is create a $1 billion fund that's specifically geared to filling the gaps from federal funding that could be lost in the next 2 years of the Trump administration. Look, let's face it. What happened the other day was a cyber security breach. It was cyber criminalization, just walking in and taking $80 million. But right now, if I were mayor, if I were controller, we would have already had protocols, early warning systems, bringing the banks in to say, how are they stealing our money that's already been appropriated? You have to be aggressive with Trump, but you also have to be strategic. And this is where experience comes in. Got to have the ability to play chess, not checkers, with the federal government, the state government pushing them when they need to be pushed. This is not going to be easy, but this is also something that I've seen before. I've worked on these issues. In the assembly, I did Democratic partners in the state Senate. I actually had to work with Republicans to pass domestic violence legislation, to pass legislation that would help the city. So I think I'm ready to engage with Trump. What's happening with Adams is a complete sellout of our city. It's a quid pro quo. It's based on basically being led around on a leash by Donald Trump and his homeland czar, because right now he could be re-indicted anytime. And if you look at the news tonight, that's exactly what they intended to do.
Any other questions? Oh, Hal or Ira?
Yeah. I know that the mayor's office is like a minor part of the MTA structure because it's mainly state. But what impact do you think you would have as mayor to keep the fares down? Because every time we know every year they want to raise it. At one point, it'll be $75 to ride the subway.
Well, actually, I believe the mayor does not have a minor role when it comes to the MTA. The city spends a lot of money subsidizing the MTA, and we also have appointments to the MTA board. I would use that appointment by appointing aggressive people who have expertise in transportation. I would make sure that we monitor the finance of the MTA, making sure that the congestion pricing surplus that we will realize will be reinvested to keep fares down, but also finally build out our 5-borough infrastructure that is so desperately needed. Think about this administration when it comes to dedicated buses. We're supposed to, by law, build 150 per year. This administration has built 15 miles since the inception of this administration. I think we need a transportation expert, somebody who has worked on these issues for the last 25 years.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay.
Going once.
Well, thank you so much, Comptroller Stringer.
Seamus, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
It's pronounced
Yes.
Seamus.
Huh?
It's pronounced Seamus.
Seamus. Well, I have to learn and do better. But story of my life. But again, condolences to you and your family.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're moving right along here. So is the district attorney up yet here? Okay, District Attorney Gonzalez, if you're available, you're up next. Okay. Uh, District Attorney's not available. I'll just go to the next one. We'll come back to him when he's available.
No, sorry, he is available. He's here.
Okay.
Give him 1 second. We're working on
Okay.
the audio.
Great. Thanks, Paige.
Video's not working.
So while we wait, how about that Super Bowl?
One. Go Birds.
I feel very bad for all the lampposts in Philadelphia. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm just happy that no police horses were killed this time, or at least punched.
Oh boy.
Note to self, for the next time that we should also just have like some hold music, like the Jeopardy theme or something. Yeah, yep. District Attorney Gonzalez, can you hear us?
Yes, how are you? Sorry for the confusion. My video wasn't working, but I'm on.
Great. Okay. Okay, yeah, 15 minutes, use them as you so wish.
All right, well, let me just change my name so everyone can see me appropriately. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for signing on today. So I'm Eric Gonzalez. I am the elected DA in Brooklyn. Can everyone see me? Great. And so I just wanted to say thank you to IND for having the invitation to come in to talk about the reasons why I'm running for re-election, to answer some of your questions. I think many of you know that I've been in office now for 7 years. I was fortunate enough in 2021 to secure the endorsement of IND. So I want to just say thank you for endorsing me then. And, when I ran for district attorney, I promised that we could do two things at once, that we can continue to work on safety for our community, make sure that Brooklyn was moving in the right direction in terms of public safety. But I believe that we could do more around criminal justice reform, and that we could make sure that our system was fundamentally fair for all of the people who come before it, and that we would not have to make sacrifices, that the balance of safety and fairness did not mean that either one of those concepts would be cheated, that people would be less safe in order to be to engage in criminal justice reform, but that we could do both things at once. And I am proud to say, during the years that I've served, many of you know that I was selected to start the conviction review unit under my predecessor, Ken Thompson. I was the person who organized and was the architect of that unit, a unit that has fundamentally changed what DAs are expected to do, not only to secure convictions at trial, but have an ongoing commitment to make sure that the people that have been convicted were in fact guilty and had received due process. Since the formation of conviction review, the Brooklyn DA's office has gone 40 times, and I went myself just 4 times in the past year, to say that our system had gotten it wrong and had imprisoned an innocent person. And that work continues, and I'm very proud of it. It's work that I think fundamentally makes members of our community, in particular Black and Brown community members who have been often the victims of wrongful convictions, understand that the responsibility of a DA is not simply to prosecute cases, but to seek justice. We've continued this work. It's the 40th time that we've gone to court and tried to correct a miscarriage of justice. Not only is that important for those families to make sure we get it right, and for those individuals, but so that DAs across America can learn the mistakes that have been made in our justice system, and so we can train and avoid those things from happening again. And I'm very proud we issue public reports on this, and we've been really a national leader. As residents of Brooklyn, you should be proud of the work that we're doing in this concept of making sure that our justice system corrects miscarriages. I was also the DA, and I see our Assembly Member Joanne Simon here, but I was also the DA who was the first district attorney in New York State to not prosecute marijuana because of the racial things that we had seen, the disparities in prosecution. Brooklyn had 15,000 marijuana arrests, many years ago. A full 90% of the people prosecuted by the Brooklyn DA's office were either African American or Latino. Really tremendous racial disparities in that work. And I said that we could not prosecute those cases, we can move towards legalization, and that our county would not suffer from it in terms of public safety. Now, we know that there were challenges around the way legalization was done, but the work of the office in leading this city forward in making sure that we got rid of marijuana prosecutions was important. In 2018, I took the unprecedented step as district attorney, and I sued Donald Trump and Homeland Security around what I consider to be unlawful raids on our courthouses and doing immigration enforcement in the courthouses. And we won an injunction in court. Our great Attorney General, Tish James, supported me in this litigation and took it statewide. And as district attorney, I thought it was, unfortunate that I had to take this action to protect our immigrant communities in Brooklyn. But I saw it necessary. And so I sued ICE. We won that case. I hired immigration attorneys. And I started to protect all of our residents. It's a very topical conversation today because we know that there's been so much demonization of non-citizens and immigrants in our community. As district attorney, if we force all of these people to back into shadows, it's going to impact public safety. And I talked about public safety, and I just want to, before I turn this over to the club with any of your questions, to say, many of you may remember that I grew up in East New York and in Bushwick, Williamsburg as a kid. I lived in East New York in the 80s and 90s when New York City truly had a public safety crisis. 2,200 homicides in our city. Brooklyn had almost 900 homicides during those years. I lost a brother to gun violence at some point in my life, and I was determined and committed to making sure that we would move us in a safer direction. I just want all of you to know, as residents and constituents of our beloved Brooklyn, that last year in 2024, it was in fact the safest year in the history of Brooklyn in terms of gun violence. And I think it's proof that we can do many things together. We can reform our justice system without having knee-jerk reactions and being more punitive. We saw what happened during COVID. There was a spike, but I continued with the measured approach, which is focusing in on recidivists and the most violent people. And 2024 is now the safest year in the recorded history of Brooklyn. And for all of these reasons, there's a lot more work for me to do as district attorney. I'm seeking the people of Brooklyn to re-elect me, send me back, and I'm hoping for the endorsement of your very distinguished club. Thank you, Seamus.
Thank you, District Attorney. Are there any questions? Jake?
Hi, and thank you for being here. You've spoken about a commitment to alternatives to incarceration and treatment, and I'm just wondering. I've been told by friends who work in the courthouse that your office has been increasing the prosecution of nonviolent drug offenses using buy and bus and frequently requesting bail in such cases, and I'm just wondering how that kind of squares together with a focus on alternatives to incarceration.
It's a wonderful question. Thank you, Jake. Very committed to making incarceration the last resort. Um, I'm not sure what you've heard in terms of that, but just as a level set, buy and bus cases are not bail eligible. So if we're seeking bail, it's because they have outstanding open matters. So maybe they're selling drugs and they have another open matter. But very, very typically, what we're looking to do in terms of, people who commit drug crimes is to get treatment and therapy. I've supported overdose prevention centers. I've written op-eds on that. That was, somewhat controversial, but I believe that drug enforcement has to have a health component to this work, that people who have substance use and substance abuse problems don't belong in Rikers, but they do belong in trying to get help. We also have our CLEAR program, which I created as district attorney, which when someone is arrested for a drug possession, a drug offense crime, we send out a peer counselor. We work with the EAC program and EAC Link program. We send out peer counselors to reach to them. And quite honestly, the conversation that we have with them is the district attorney would prefer not to prosecute this crime. We're giving you 2 weeks to work with us to get into a program. We don't require the completion of the program not to be prosecuted, but we do require that the person enroll and take some positive steps in their, their lives, try to deal with their substance use issues. So in terms of that, it is something. I mean, there has been some concern by our community, especially in places like Bed-Stuy and some traditionally, Black communities, that there's been open air drug dealing. And of course, we need to deal with those community concerns. But just as a general sense, someone who's simply arrested for a drug crime is not typically bail eligible. And we still have our treatment parts both in the Supreme Court and in criminal court for people who are arrested for those types of offenses.
Any more questions?
Hello?
Gail?
Yeah. Hi, DA Gonzalez. As a former prosecutor, I know that the discovery rules have changed and they've become overwhelming. In fact, Darcel Clark was my classmate. So what do you think the chances are of us reforming that? Because a lot of cases, as you know, are being dismissed because of 30/30 rules.
Yeah, so I was a big proponent of open file discovery, and Brooklyn has a long history of being on the forefront of making sure that discovery was provided early and often to the accused and to defenders. New York State had a problem that discovery typically was not turned over to defense attorneys. And I see Steve Bronstein on the call, who's an attorney that has practiced in many, many courts. And I think it needed to be changed, that we needed to have mechanisms involved where prosecutors across the state had to play by the same rules. So I think that we had discovery laws change was a positive thing for criminal justice. I think the concern that I have as the district attorney of Brooklyn is Brooklyn has about 80,000 arrests a year. Currently, it was 78,000 and change last year. It's been, in 2019, it was, over 80,000. We look like we're headed towards a little bit over 80,000 this year. So the volume that we have does not allow prosecutors to make any mistakes. If there's anything that's missing, the remedy for the court is dismissal. So Governor Hochul has put in her budget a provision that would not change the fact that DAs have an obligation to turn over everything and turn it over quickly, but would allow a court to have more discretion in not dismissing a case simply because there's something missing. I support that. I think it's reasonable. I know that the defender organizations are against that, and they call that a rollback. I call it more being common sense. We have about a 50% dismissal rate in the low-level, volume-oriented part. Prosecutors are spending upwards of 80% of their day trying to collect paperwork. And the last thing I'll say on that, what the law requires prosecutors to do is to not only turn over what's in their possession, but to collect things that are not necessarily in the government's possession. So if there's information that's in private medical offices or doctors' offices, or if we're trying to collect, information from Facebook, we still only have, the time frame under the statute, which in misdemeanors is either 60 days or 90 days to turn over everything. If we don't meet that burden, the case gets dismissed. I think this would allow judges to examine whether or not the DA used good faith and due diligence. We subpoenaed it, we ordered it. And if it's not in our custody and control at that moment, it should not lead to immediate dismissal. We've seen a lot of cases get dismissed, in particular in places like domestic violence, where our victims may go to private doctors or have gone to a counselor or went to therapy, and we have to get those records. And, quite frankly, it's very hard to get compliance with private individuals under the time frame that we have. And there are roughly 480 prosecutors at the DA's office. If you do the math and divide 80,000 cases by 480, it's an unworkable magic. So having a little bit more grace for our prosecutors to be able to do the important work they do seems to make a lot of sense to me.
Okay, and that's time. Thank you so much, District Attorney. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you. And I look forward to continuing to work. I see there are a number of people on this conversation that are friends and people I've worked with. So thank you all. Thank you, Seamus.
Thank you. Okay, so
I'm gonna log off, okay?
Okay, yeah, totally fine. Thanks. Then I'm gonna have to lower your hand. Next up, we have also a candidate for District 35, Dion Ashman. Dion, can you hear us okay?
Yes, Seamus. Good evening, everyone. Let me first thank you all for inviting me to your platform. I am truly honored. Let me express my condolences. I too know what it is all too well to have a close family member transition, several close family members actually, and to be a caregiver for my father after 3 minute strokes. We were able to treat him and take care of him with love and care. And after those 3 minute strokes at the age of 80, he transitioned at the age of 89. Last 2 years in long-term acute care because it just became so overwhelming as he faded away from us. Lifelong resident here in Crown Heights. I have been to Pia Public School 161, Intermediate School 320, Midwood High School, New York City Technical College, and Pace University on a basketball scholarship, where I graduated from all of those schools, obviously. I am compelled to campaign now because of the lack of what we're seeing in our neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods are just under attack. We don't have employment. We don't have the skill trades that we used to have. We have a great deal of crime. I've never seen anything that slows down crime better than a W-2 or 1099. It's just a fact that when people have gainful employment, they can save money, they can save money, they can invest money, things go better. Maybe they can put away a little bit of money and have a family vacation every year or every other year. We have issues with developers just overtaking our neighborhoods. It's somewhat just frightening for a lot of folks, especially those who are living on a fixed income. We have our issues of City of Yes, that everybody is familiar with here, I'm sure. And with that happening, that's going to turn our city upside down. And there needs to be something done to address it. We need to have somebody in office who has the appetite for the fight, who's willing to show up and be accountable for the constituents. And we're just not seeing that. I saw the what has happened with development throughout my neighborhood and other parts of the district. And we have community boards that are being weakened every step of the way. The first defense that we have, everyone, for our neighborhoods is the community board. First, there was an effort to get rid of our community boards or get rid of the ULURP process, and then they couldn't get rid of the ULURP process. Then the next phase was to get rid of the community boards altogether. That did not happen. Now it's City of Yes, which is almost going to make the community boards null and void. And that is our first level of protection. When we walk out of our homes and we look over to an area that is supposed to be height restricted, and we see a 15-story or 20-story building, we have to look at who our representation is for that. And that's just an unfortunate reality, but it is the reality. And I'm looking at what we're dealing with day to day, and we're fighting like 4 or 5 battles every step of the way. And it shouldn't be that way. Our neighborhoods have been deindustrialized. When I came through middle school and high school, we had shop classes. You had wood shop, you had sheet metal, you had word processing. The young ladies were doing home economics and typing and steno and shorthand. I knew young ladies when they graduated from high school, they could type 113 words a minute with 2 mistakes and would get a job in the private sector immediately right out of high school. People were able to get certified in building maintenance and go right into a position that was giving them an honest wage. They had health benefits and a pension. All that's been gutted. All that's been taken away from us. And our kids are being pushed to go to college, get high interest student loans, and be in debt until they're into their 40s, their 50s, and 60s. So we need accountability. We need to show up. We have issues with overdumping with shelters in our neighborhoods. We had an issue with a shelter in our neighborhood several years ago, and we brought litigation against de Blasio's Department of Homeless Services to try to hold the city accountable. And we were able to get some concessions, and we just didn't bring litigation against Department of Homeless Services. We brought litigation against the developer and also the provider. And we were able to get some concessions, and a number of those families that were challenged with being homeless were able to move into the same facility when they were able to, and then cross over in that facility into true equitable, or call it true affordable housing, and really get a new jumpstart in life. But when we look at how those shelters are ushered out, we see that they're going predominantly to either low-income white neighborhoods or Black and brown neighborhoods, and it's inequitable. So we have to go and we have to look at the city charter fair share plan, and we have to hold the city accountable for what it's supposed to do according to the city charter. And again, have the appetite for the fight, because there's too many representing, and here in the 35th as well, that this isn't, they're not fighting for us. Our electeds, we vote not because we get the activity of voting. You know, people talk about, oh, you have to vote, you have to vote. So many people fought for the right for you to vote. True. Very true. But moreover than that, people cast their ballot because they want the fringe benefits that come from voting. And that's what's always missing, the fringe benefit. And the fringe benefit is that we vote for you, and you will represent for us. My name is Dion Michael Ashman, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Are there any questions? Any questions for Dion?
Seamus, I have a quick.
Okay. Yeah, Eileen,
Yeah,
go for it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Councilman, what do you think is the biggest hurdle in, I mean, you've been in office, you've been in office and you've seen what the difficulties are. What is the biggest hurdle between what you just said and accomplishing it?
She said, I've been in, oh, you're saying that you're speaking hypothetically. I'm in office. You assume that I'm in office. Is that the question?
Are you in office right now or no? I apologize.
I'm a candidate. Challenging.
And a candidate. Okay. Okay. So I apologize. So let me swing back. So what do you think is the biggest hurdle in not being able, that we have not been able to achieve that?
Well, there's a lot of hurdles. When again, in which area? Because I spoke about a couple of different areas. Are we talking about crime? Are we talking about City of Yes? Which are we talking about?
Let's talk about the City of Yes, because I'm really interested in that. So why don't we talk about that?
So City of Yes, as I mentioned, is going to turn the city upside down. And a big part of that is that there is a misnomer in the narrative of City of Yes, which doesn't talk about what really is the issue. They speak of us having a housing crisis. There is a crisis, but the crisis is not housing. The crisis is affordability. We have over 200,000 available units in this city. 5,000, just over 5,000 of them alone in NYCHA, right? New York City Housing Authority. Then you have 190,000 plus that are in other areas. We have to be able to find a way to put pressure on landlords to do what they're supposed to do and not look to deregulate apartments illegally so that they could jack up the prices on people. And that's what we have a great and inordinate amount of. And we have to be mindful of that. But the narrative has been housing crisis. And we see where all this overdevelopment is not going to solve anything. It's just going to be more. And then we got to be mindful that we don't have a situation like what took place here in Crown Heights, which is that, and not just Crown Heights, a couple of other areas as well, neighborhoods as well, which is a developer gets into problems. And when the developer gets into problems, they cut a deal with the city. And then they have a partial shelter and partial market rate, partial low income housing. And that's what we're seeing. There were 4 hotels that opened up about 4 or 5 years ago in Brownsville alone. And all of those hotels are shelters put right in Brownsville. So a big part of it is understanding what the true narrative should be and battling against that. And let me say one more thing that I don't want to leave out. We're not looking at the collateral damage enough. When you have projects that take place with the rezoning and families are being pushed out, or private businesses are being pushed out, and they're not looking at it beyond the workers for those private businesses, but those workers have families as well. So you're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are being displaced and being challenged inordinately economically, which is just totally unfair. And we're supposed to be better than that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Ralph, you have a question?
Yeah. Good. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So Dion, right? My name is
Yes,
Ralph,
sir.
and I've been trying to volunteer for the campaign. Do we just write to your Gmail account? Because I don't seem to be able to, because I live in that area too, and I know the Prospect Heights group, and Julia Bryant recommended you. So
Sure.
I wanted to volunteer, but do you have a website? How do we
Absolutely.
contact you? Yeah.
Absolutely. You can email us at voteashman.com.
Yeah. I will ask that questions about those sorts of things just actually happen sort of in the
absolutely.
chat. Yeah. Just
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
yeah.
Thank you, Ralph.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Jake, you had a question earlier?
Sure. Yeah, I'll just very quick, I guess, sort of.
Hey, Jake.
Hey, I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. Is it your position that the city does not need more housing?
My position absolutely is that there is housing that is there, but we have to hold landlords accountable. And the narrative that we have in the city is that we have a housing crisis when we have an affordability crisis. A family of three, when these developers come into our neighborhoods, they're not even looking at what the AMI is, or either they know and they just ignore it. So you come to Crown Heights or you come to District 35 and you want to go with an AMI of for a family of three of $141,000. When you have an AMI locally of $55,000, a family of one, you're talking about somewhere between $82,000 and $96,000, and you have an AMI of $55,000. The numbers don't add up.
So you would be against building more housing in the city?
I'm totally against that, Jake. I'm totally against that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'll add one other. Oh, somebody.
The recording is just a note taker system.
Okay.
I believe somebody is using that for transcription purposes. So we do try to be accessible. So.
And while I'm here, I just have to say thank you to for the people who have supported our campaign. I have to say thank you. Just a blanket thank you, because we wouldn't even be interviewed by you guys tonight and sharing dialogue this evening, conversing this evening, if it were not for the people who saw it in their good nature to make contributions to our campaign. We are not doing anything with receiving funds from private or corporate interest, special interest developers, not doing that at all. Everything that we have been able to raise for the campaign has been totally from private citizens who believe and support and are there for us in some way, shape, or form. And I am more than humbled and so appreciative of that. I'm actually, I'm just really taken aback by it, because it shows that they believe in what we're about here. And I'm just very appreciative that they would take a portion of their personal treasure, a small portion, and contribute to us. It's been great.
We have time for one short question. Any other questions? Any other questions? Well, thank you so much, Dion, for joining us.
Thank you, Seamus. I'm on to another meeting. Thank you so much. Appreciate all of you, everybody. Oh, and Happy New You to everyone. Take care.
Wonderful. Okay, so moving right along here. We have the distinct honor of being joined once again by royalty. Paperboy Love Prince is running for mayor and is joining us this evening. Paperboy, can you hear us?
Hello,
Oh,
hello. Can you hear me?
yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So happy to be here, and also condolences to you, Seamus, and your family for your loss. So definitely wanted to extend that to you, and also want to say rest in peace to my friend Chelsea Reject, who I just found out passed away today. A great artist, and definitely mourning her loss. So yeah, so happy to be here with you all and speak. My name's Paperboy Prince, Paperboy Love Prince. Paper, yeah, it's our time. One love. It's great to be back. You know, normally I honestly don't end up doing endorsement meetings because there's so many issues with the process, but I love getting to speak to you all and love getting to learn from other candidates as well as just folks around the city. So yeah, the main thing that I want to kind of talk about today is right now we're at a turning point in this country, right? Like it's a turning point that we can't ignore. And the politicians in this city, the establishment politicians in the city, are largely to blame for that. They're a big issue for that. It's almost like a controlled opposition, right? And we have folks that that have the opportunity to do something but drag their feet. And now we have the right wing in this country bolder than ever, more organized than ever. And even if it's around what some would consider the silliest issues, they're finding ways to step up and get things done. While, we just had someone like, well, we just have our, I was going to say, we just had someone like Hakeem Jeffries say recently, what can we do? It's their government, right? It's their government. What can we do? They control the House, control the Senate. Now I'm running for mayor. I'm not running for Congress at the moment. But my point is saying that now more than ever, we need focused outsiders that can actually lead us to a new city. And myself, I'm a candidate that's been able to make it this far in a unique way because I'm a regular person that didn't come through the traditional channels, being handpicked by an elected or, a major club, or I'm not a rich person that was able to buy my way into this game. I'm actually someone who was an artist. I'm a business owner. I have a local business here at 1254 Myrtle Avenue in Brooklyn, and have been supported so much by this community as a regular person. And we've gotten so far away from that. And in this mayor race, we have a slew of establishment politicians who've been running for office, who are supported by the same people and have the same ideas, and we're going to get the same results. So now we really need to, now more than ever, if we want to push the Democratic Party forward, if we want to bring new people in, we have to focus on futuristic ideas, futuristic ideals, and something that really inspires me, which is love. When I first started advocating for love, people said it was a joke, that it wasn't important. There's no place in politics for that. But the other side has plenty of place for hate. The other side has plenty of place for bigotry. They find space for that. And then folks on the Democratic side, sorry, I'm getting so emotional talking about it. Folks on the Democratic side, because they don't know how to combat that, they end up responding with hate. Right now, I'm saying let's focus on love. Obviously, the economics in the city are broken. No matter folks' tax bracket, they're disproportionately spending money on rent, on food, barely been able to make ends meet. So many folks in credit card debt. The idea of being able to own a home in New York City is literally basically impossible for most people. And if you're a young person, I mean, forget about it. That's almost across the country, but definitely in New York City. And I've been able to champion and advocate for so many issues that I think that would be a big deal. Stuff like UBI, housing for all, jobs guarantee, ending poverty, futuristic schools, so many things. Paid for, yeah. And like I said, most importantly, love. So I've been running for office every year since 2019. I've helped over 30 candidates run for office and make the ballot, folks all across the country. So many people who are traditionally just felt disconnected from the political system. I've helped to bring them in, also helped to audit voting machines and processes across the city in the different races I've run, and helped other candidates with that. So I appreciate you all for allowing me to speak and talk to you. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can come and meet me sometime in person at my gallery space in Brooklyn at 1254 Myrtle Avenue, or we can talk online. So if you have any questions, happy to answer those for you.
Any questions for Paperboy?
Seamus, I just have to say, Paperboy, thank you so much. I just Googled you, and the first thing that came up was your recent X, or like former Twitter, shout out to us, the IND. So I'll post it in the chat if I could figure out how to screenshot. But everybody, he just basically, Paperboy just said he was talking to us today on X. So thank you for that. But I do have a quick question. I mean, what do you think? If the first thing that, if you became mayor, what would be the first thing that you would do?
the number one thing that I would do first would be figure out a path to housing for all. That is an emergency issue, is housing for all. That's a healthcare issue. That's a senior citizen issue. That's a childcare issue. So that's a big deal right now. And so many folks are that I talk about this often when I meet people, but so many folks are living in their cars right now in New York City. Like this is where our housing situation is that I walk down my block, and I'm not going to tell you all exactly where I live so you don't know where to come and find it, but I see so many people every single night sleeping in their cars, eating in their cars, meeting friends in there. And this is kind of the future of this city. So so that would be the top priority, is housing for all. At this point, we can't not figure that out and make that a priority. So that would be a number one thing. And a close second would be figuring out a universal basic income. And I say figuring out because it'd be a process we're working with everyone. We want to work with as many people as possible. I wouldn't come in as a dictator and say, this is what we're going to do. But we would figure these things out. And basic income is so important. When I first started talking about it in my campaigns in 2019, AI seemed a long way away, right? It seemed like it would be a long way off until we would have artificial intelligence, until it would be normalized in our work. Now, more folks are losing their job to AI than ever before. It's cutting into so many things. The job market in New York City is rough right now, and that's one of the reasons. And a lot of these companies have a base here in New York. So I think figuring out universal basic income, but for sure, housing for all is a top priority.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Jackie?
Hi, thank you, Seamus. Thank you, Paperboy, Prince. I just had a quick question. I had a different question, but I'm gonna change my question actually, hearing that last question. And thank you for your time, Paperboy Prince. I know that you've run a bunch of times, and your message. Kudos to you, because your message definitely stays the same. About love and definitely anti-hate, which I appreciate. And to be honest, this might be your year. People are definitely sick of the billionaire class, let's say, now more than ever. But to piggyback on that last question about housing for all, which you just said was definitely something that you would want to tackle right away. There have been in the past several initiatives that have attempted housing for all and affordable housing and different levels of that in the city. What are some of your ideas for initiatives for that?
So thank you so much for that question. And yes, I have run for office a bunch of times. In fact, I like to joke, but as a joke, it's serious. I say, hey, I've gotten more votes for mayor than anybody else in the mayor race, save Eric Adams. And to be fair, they weren't running last year, but it's true. And over 70,000 people helped to vote for us in New York City's first ranked choice voting election. So we're super happy about that. It wasn't a win, but it's a step forward. And as far as figuring out, housing for all and some of those initiatives, when I first spoke, I talked about controlled opposition, and a lot of the candidates and current electeds in our state government, as well as our city government, they pretend, and I think they mean well. Actually, I'll say this. When I ran for mayor last year, one of the candidates said, what's the average cost of a home in New York City? And I think they said $100,000. And they were completely unaware that, the average price of a home at that time was around $900,000. I think now it's closer to $1 million. My point is there's two things happening. One, the people in office literally actually just don't know the numbers and aren't aware, so they aren't aware of how dire the situation is. And then two, it is a controlled opposition. A lot of times they end up not wanting to advocate for a true solution. They want to advocate for something that they know isn't going to work so that they don't have to do the work. And this is what ends up happening with affordable housing. Folks know when they hear affordable housing, it basically means it's not going to be affordable. It's basically like not affordable. It's a joke, like, and it's by people who are out of touch. Also, so many folks in New York are freelancers. They have different types of ways of getting their income. And the way to be able to qualify for these things is, outdated in a lot of ways. So, so that's kind of one of the first things to attack is move the folks out of the way that are claiming to be champions for housing. We have to move them out of the way and get true housing champions and folks that have, real futuristic solutions to be able to advocate for those.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're at time here.
Okay.
Oh, we can. We're at time.
Okay.
We're actually past. No, we're past. We can't. No.
Say again.
We're past time, so we have to move on. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
I
so much,
appreciate
Kate.
it. And have a great rest of the meeting. I appreciate that.
Is Marissa Arboreto available? Marissa? I know she's
Yes, hi.
oh,
Moment, please.
sure.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hi, how are you?
Good.
I apologize. I'm going from one place to another right now. There's several meetings going on this evening, so I apologize. Okay, I am available. Hi. Thank you for having me. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, you can get started whenever you're ready.
Okay, give me 1 second. Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Marissa Arboreto. I am running for a civil court judge countywide. I am born and raised in Brooklyn. I was a civil litigator for approximately 20 years before getting into the court system as a court attorney 3 years ago. So in my years of civil litigation, I represented people all over Brooklyn in various civil cases in housing court, family court early on in my career, and then civil court and Supreme Court. I then wanted to get into the court system. I loved being an attorney and I loved representing both sides, but I felt that the court system was a better fit for me, a more neutral position so that I could help both sides. I started working for Judge Donald Kurtz in Supreme Court. And after he retired, I started working for Judge Kenneth Sherman, who I'm currently working for. Both judges are assigned pretrial parts, which means right before going to trial, they handle the cases. And what they do is they try to resolve it and hold settlement conferences. So that's what I assist in, and that's what I do. I also hear oral arguments on all motions. Judge Sherman is also assigned to all cases that are brought against the city of New York. So it's a city trial readiness part. The other part that I conference cases in is the non-jury part, which are mortgage foreclosures, debt collection, and it involves a lot of self-represented litigants that in the position that I'm in, rather as their adversary, I'm in a much better position now to assist them and help them and give them guidance and refer them to the resources that we have in court. And that's why I want to be a judge, is to be in a better position to help both sides and have an experience on both sides would put me in a good position to and puts me as a great candidate for a civil court judge. I am a member of various bar associations as well, and a board member of the Colombian Lawyers Association. I'm a member of the Federation of the Italian American Organization, and I did community work with them through college, volunteering in their various youth programs. I am a single mother of 2 children. My son now volunteers every Friday at the Italian American Federation, and my daughter's a high school student in a public high school. And I thank you for having me. Is there any questions?
Okay, so
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Yeah, I'm asking any questions?
Oh.
Anyone? Going once?
Steve
Going-
Brownstein had his hand up.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, I heard something. Yeah.
Yeah, Marissa, can you tell us how your experience as a litigator would aid you in being a judge? And I'm not talking about your work in the court, but your work when you're actually representing individuals.
So I represented both plaintiffs and defendants. So I was first representing plaintiffs early on, and in civil litigation cases. In family court, I represented both sides as well, and I always related to both sides, and I think that's what a judge should understand, is the impact that their decision has on litigants. So I had to be the one to explain to my client why the judge made the decision that they made. And I saw firsthand the impact. So I take that very seriously. I know the weight that it carries on the litigants. I appreciated judges that would not decide my motions just based on my papers, that would call us in for oral arguments. I intend, and I do now, even when I hear oral arguments, we require oral arguments on all motions. And I just feel that the litigants need to be heard. And I ask questions. I hear the arguments, but there's always more questions. And my judge also always has questions. It's just, it's important to make fully informed decisions. And having represented both sides and seeing the impact that it has on how judges handle these cases, I think that would put me in a great position to understand the litigants better, whether they're represented by attorneys or self-represented, especially if they're self-represented. Again, being their adversary and now helping them as court attorneys, I just feel I would be in a much better position to understand that and just understand all sides at this point, after 23 years being an attorney, as a court attorney and a civil litigator.
Steve Wagner?
Hi, yeah. Thank you very much. I just want to understand your background. You did plaintiff's personal injury first?
Okay, early on in my career, I did matrimonial and family law.
Okay.
And also landlord tenant. So that was
Okay.
the main 3, along with personal injury. I also worked in law firms. So I attended St. Francis College in downtown Brooklyn. So I worked for a law firm on Court Street in Brooklyn. And that's when I first decided that law was the right fit for me. And I then, yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
I started out, that law firm was personal injury and defense, insurance defense. It was both. But then after graduating law school, as I said, it was family law, matrimonial, landlord tenant, but also the personal injury side for several years before I went into insurance defense. So I went into insurance defense. I wanted to be staff counsel because a lot of insurance companies have outside counsel that represent them in insurance defense cases. But those firms, I did work for, I believe, 2 of those firms, but it was more about billing than the quality of my work. So I did take some time off after my son was born, and then I decided to look for a staff counsel job, which then I was staff counsel for First Tower Insurance and then AmTrust Insurance for 14 years before working in the court system.
Got it. Do you read papers before oral argument, or do you hear oral argument and then decide whether or not to read the papers?
No, the first step is reading the papers, all the papers. I have to because I have to discuss the motion with my judge. And Judge Kurtz and Judge Sherman both the same way. And they both had, they both would ask me questions. So I have no choice but to read the papers. But again, as a civil litigator, I would not be okay if a judge decided one of my motions that I worked hard on without even reading my papers. And I think it should be based on the papers and oral argument. So yes, I do read all the papers.
That was the right answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yeah. Gail, yes, you have a question?
Yeah. So, no, not a question, just for everyone's education. The two judges that she has clerked for, they're very particular, and she has to be on top of her game. And I know
Can we leave that for club
well,
discussion?
I'm just letting you know, I may not stay on the call, so just a heads up.
Yeah, we leave
Well,
that discussion to the club discussion.
Just to
Please.
say, Judge Kurtz and Judge Sherman are very well respected, as you can see, but it's for a reason. You got to earn your respect as a judge. They didn't just get on the bench and people automatically respected them. They earned it because they work very hard and they get informed and ask questions, and that's what I intend to do, to make informed decisions. Everyone has to follow the law. As a judge, we have to apply the law as it's written and make fair and impartial decisions. That's obvious. But a judge who takes the extra step and the extra time and the patience to get to know the case, get to know why these individuals are before you, what's going on, and just to make a fully informed decision is very important.
Are there any other questions? Any other questions? Going once, going twice? Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Great. So next up, is Janice Purvis available? No, I see that she is on.
Yes, hello.
Janice, you're up.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Janice Purvis. I'm running for civil court judge countywide. I have 2 decades of experience working in the court system. I have worked through my successive legal titles within the law department to my current position, which is quasi-judicial. I am a court attorney referee. I am essentially known as a Jack or Jill of all trades. So instead of working for one particular judge, I work for multiple judges, and sometimes I'm working for 2 to 3 judges at the same time. I research and write decisions for various judges on a variety of cases. I conduct conferences with litigants where I resolve disputes pre-trial. I am a special referee on uncontested matrimonial matters, which means I review uncontested divorce applications, I review settlement agreements and do, applicable database searches where the cases involve children, and I sign divorce judgments. And then I also work in the help center, which is a very gratifying, a very rewarding, and a very important part of the court system, because we help people who come into the courthouse who do not have funds to hire an attorney. So in the help center, I explain court procedures, I provide and explain court forms, and then I also give information for free legal services. And lastly, in my role in the law department, anytime there are new attorneys, I am training the new attorneys in the various parts within the courthouse.
Okay, are there any questions? Matt?
Do you have any experience outside the court system in private practice that you could draw on? And if you don't, do you think that the fact that you've never actually had to counsel a client or counsel a litigant about the effects of rulings is something that's going to be a hindrance to your ability to be a judge?
Oh, I actually have experience in private practice. I was in private practice for about 2 years. It was mostly corporate litigation, where I did counsel clients. I prepared them for depositions, and, asked particular questions, in prepping them for these depositions. Also in private practice, I remember what it felt like when I had to appear in court and I wasn't familiar with being in court. And I remember, even though I was a lawyer and I knew the case, I knew what I was arguing and what I needed to do, I still remember that fear. And that's what helps me in my role, not only dealing with self-represented litigants, whether I'm in the various discovery parts, conferencing cases, but also in the help center, because I realize what it must feel like for somebody who doesn't want to be in the courthouse. They don't have access to funds so they can hire an attorney, and have that level of fear and helplessness. So I think that guides me in all that I do with helping self-represented litigants.
Any more questions? Jake?
Hi, and thank you for being here. You've spoken a bunch about pro se litigants and obviously the difficulties that someone pro se faces in the court system. As a judge, are there any specific changes you would make or that you would advocate for to make it easier on civil pro se litigants to litigate their cases?
Well, something that I incorporate when I'm conferencing cases with litigants, and I just did this today when somebody came in, it was a plaintiff on a case, and she knew she had to appear in court. She didn't know where, she didn't know what it was for. And I immediately said, okay, I'm going to look up your case. Are you the plaintiff? Are you the defendant? And, I looked up her case, and then I explained, what she was there for. But one of the first questions that I ask is, have you been down to the help center? Have you tried to look for an attorney? And if you haven't been to the help center, I, go give a little bit of information. I tell them that, if you need a further explanation on some of the legal forms and the terms, you can go down to the help center, and they'll provide you with that information. But also, more importantly, if you want to hire an attorney, there are resources available so you can look through. We give that information. So I think dealing with pro se litigants, from my perspective, it's very important to initially say, have you looked for an attorney? Have you been to the help center? Have you gotten this information? Because it's such an invaluable resource.
Any more questions? Going once, going twice. Well, thank you, Jazz, for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much.
Okay. To keep up with this theme, next up, we have Janice Chen, also running for civil court, countywide. Janice, are you on?
Hi, yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're all up.
Hi. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for sticking around for so long and giving me the opportunity to meet everybody here on the membership. Again, my name is Janice Chen. I am running for Kings County Civil Court, and I have been a court attorney in Brooklyn for over 20 years. I started my career 20 years ago with Judge Feiertag, and he took a guardianship inventory. He was a criminal term judge. And even though he was a criminal term judge, I saw the kind of compassion that a judge could have towards a guardianship petitioner and an incapacitated person who comes before the court. Because in a guardianship case, both parties pretty much come before the court at their most vulnerable time. The alleged incapacitated person who may be suffering some sort of, physical or mental incapacity, and then the person who brings the petition for them because they care, because they want to be able to help, but there are certain legal impediments, especially 20 years ago, that they needed to come before the court to get a court order in order to actually help this person. When you go before a guardianship court for an order to become a guardian, the court must also consider what kind of issues this alleged incapacitated person has. So when you appoint a guardian, you also consider this AIP. Well, we say AIP for short. When they come before you, what exactly is the issue? And it could run a whole gamut of different issues. For a while, it was a landlord-tenant issue. A lot of our respondents, our AIPs, came before us because they were unable to respond in landlord-tenant court. Sometimes they were respondents in foreclosure cases. So we've had a lot of involvement in foreclosure cases. And sometimes it's really just giving somebody the opportunity or the authority to renew somebody's government benefits, whether they're Section 8, whether they need to requalify from community Medicaid for home aids. It was important for us, from the court's perspective, to understand where this case was coming from and what sort of authority our petitioner needed. In addition to being in guardianships, I was also assigned to the general civil discovery part, where I transitioned from somebody who really needed help to having usually two parties before you, who were more or less equally represented by attorneys. And so it was sort of a new take for me on what the different sides could bring to the table, what it was to have a case where we had two attorneys have the ability to argue both sides to you. And most recently, I've been reassigned back to the guardianship part, where I am assisting 3 different judges who have been assigned to the guardianship part within the past year and a half. I help them with their oral decisions. I discuss with them what the issues are and what they need to be able to address on the record with all of the parties. And then I assist them with generally the compliance issues with respect to guardianships, because let's not forget, once you appoint a guardian, that guardian has to report back to the court every year, right? The court wants to know every year, did you marshal any assets? Did you manage to get a hold of their income and their checking account? And what have you done with it in the past year? And so there's that initial appointment aspect, but then there's this follow-up that goes on in perpetuity, and that needs to be checked on every year. And so I am helping and assisting the 3 new judges in that capacity. On a more personal level, I have been a volunteer board member at a charter school down in East New York for well over also a dozen years. And if you let me, I'll talk about it all day. The students are really my pride and joy. And we recently were able to move the school from East New York up to a little bit further up to the junction where Ocean Hill and Brownsville sort of intersect. Given the opportunity, I would be there permanently, but I know that if I am successful, I would be willing to step back and just be a board member, but they are actually my pride and joy and my passion for having the opportunity to give all students equal and great education. And that applies, and that can be applied and projected onto the role of a judge. The role of a judge should also equal that of a teacher, a board member. You are the example for everyone. And so as a judge, you come into the process as a neutral trier of fact and law, and all parties deserve the right to have somebody hear what their case is. And I believe that my years of experience with the various judges in guardianships and in civil litigation and provide me the kind of experience that would serve as a good judge in Brooklyn Civil Court. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Are there any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Going once, going twice. Well, thank you, Janice, for coming.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we just have one more candidate left. It's Susan Liebman. Susan, I think, was on. She's still here.
Here.
Yeah,
I'm here.
Susan. Yeah, Susan. Okay, yeah, you're up.
Sec. Trying to get there we go. Hello, everyone. My name is Susan Liebman. I'm running for civil court judge countywide. I'm hoping many of you know something of my background by now, but if you don't, I apologize in advance for boring you. I've worked for the court as an attorney to various judges for, I think it's 27 years now. While working in the court, I've had the good fortune to handle cases in the commercial landlord-tenant part, custody and divorce, the criminal part. I've had significant experience, and I think most of our local and state laws. More recently, the judge I work for, Peter Sweeney, is the election judge, which was actually at my request because I find it so interesting. And I love learning different aspects of the law. In my private life, I try to help whomever I see that needs help, so long as I'm not violating my principles or my oath as an attorney. So for example, when locally I was getting my nails done, and this was pre-COVID actually, I saw all the nail techs in the place had to turn their tips over to the owners. They whispered to me so as to not get in trouble. The owner would transfer them back and forth to wherever it was they were staying in a van with the windows closed up so nobody could see who was inside. And the salon owners also kept their passports. Now, I'm not allowed to practice law. I'm not allowed to give legal advice, rather, to the general public for fear of a potential conflict. But what I am allowed to do is give procedural advice. I told them exactly which forms to file. I told them what to say in the forms. Or I suggested the kind of information that would be helpful for whomever processed the forms to know. In any event, in the end, all of the workers that I helped, who were new immigrants from mostly Nepal, but other countries as well, were able to collect their wages from each of these salon owners. And during COVID, most of these salons closed up, but one is still here. All of these women are gone. I have no idea what happened to them, and it troubles me to this day. The other thing I want to point out, the way I handle cases, for example, or thus far, I was given the 2,000 oldest foreclosures in the Brooklyn court system to try and work through. And it was my policy, and my judge approved of this, to scrutinize every application for foreclosure. Many had been pending for a decade or more. And if the banks didn't do their paperwork absolutely correctly, there was no foreclosure. It was dismissed, and people got this off their heads, off their credit reports for the future, and got on with their lives. So I think that's kind of exemplary of the kind of judge I hope to be, should I win your endorsement and your support. And I would love to take any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for Susan? Jake, go ahead.
Apologies for my own ignorance, but you mentioned you've been in the court system for 27 years. Do you have experience outside of the court system? Legal
I
experience?
do. I was in private practice. I think it was 6 years prior to joining the court system. I even had my own practice back at my house in Canarsie, doing everything, immigration, wills, closings. My issue with my own practice was that I hated asking people for money, to be quite honest. I knew their financial circumstances were sometimes dire. And for that reason, I stopped having my own practice as much as I love the contact with the neighbors. So yes, I have. I've also worked for a larger firm I worked full time while I was in law school and worked in a law firm full time. Uh, Mostly insurance defense, but it was a great law firm. And they allowed me, for example, to take on, I think it was one of the first product liability cases where a young student had taken a supplement, a vitamin supplement, a nutritional supplement. He ended up critically disabled from taking that. I got the firm to take the case pro bono. He won millions of dollars, fortunately. It was a horrible case, but I believe we set precedent in that case. And I got the firm to not take a penny.
Thank you.
Of course. Anyone else?
Going once. Going twice.
I have a question, James.
Please.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry if I missed this, but which judge do you work for now?
Currently, I work for Peter Sweeney.
Okay,
I will say
thank you.
Judge Sweeney is out on medical leave, unfortunately, and Judge Gina Abadi is covering his part in the interim. So I work for Judge Sweeney, but I have a new sort of boss.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Any other questions? Anything
I
else?
can comment here that both judges have wonderful reputations. I just wanted to say that.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Susan.
Thank you for your time. I very much appreciate your consideration. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so now comes the fun part of the meeting, everyone. We're going to head into club discussion. So only voting members in good standing would be eligible to vote. Basically, uh, Matt, Theo spoke at our forum last week. Uh, finish what I was saying. So yeah, we'll go into club discussion. Only voting members in good standing will be able to vote. If you got a ballot this week, you would be eligible to vote. If you aren't sure, just go into the chat and we'll try to figure it out for you. There's also a few people who donated, well, it was technically a donation, paid dues. I'll answer that. One question, Maya. Uh, they paid dues. For those cases, actually, they're good. So way it works with club discussion is you can be there for any race that since we do have members that are candidates, you can be there, but you cannot be there for a discussion of your election. So we have two breakout rooms. If we get to one where it's your race, you can't be there. So we'll also have to move you out while we talk about you behind your back. So with that, I'm going to open up the breakout rooms so we can get started with that, and then we're going to send out the ballots, okay? Okay. So everyone that will be eligible is being assigned right now. Sabrina?
I just got invited to a breakout room. Should I just ignore this? Is that what you
Yeah. So because you're a member in good standing. So yeah, that's the one where we'll be just talking about candidates. Hold on. Hold on. Excuse me, I'm also getting a question. So there's no one speaking right now.
No, I heard you.
Well, yeah, this is the breakout room because I'm not in there.
I was speaking from
Yeah. Just give everyone a minute or so more. Uh, Yeah, it's because I'm
Sorry, how do I go to the breakout room?
uh you should be assi- oh, let me assign you to it. You weren't set. Okay. Going over now. Reason showing. Galata. Sabrina, you still have a question, or you just have your hand up still? Or
Is this one of the groups or?
yeah, no, Carlos. Yeah, I just assigned you. Yeah,
Okay. Hey,
Andrew.
Can I do you want me to help assign? I can only put people in the,
Yeah,
so that's the only option I have.
or
Is
the
there
unassigned. Yeah, okay. Well,
okay. Hmm,
Bruno is good. Goes there. Breakout room.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, Art. Okay, here we go. Discussion room.
All right. I don't
I
think I
think
can help
we, I think
them.
we have everyone now.
Okay, because I only can put people in the waiting room, not
Okay.
a discussion room.
Oh,
So
that's weird. Okay. I don't know
yeah,
why that is.
just letting you know why I'm not helping you.
Oh, I'll actually, no, I'll just do participants to do that. So, okay. Okay, let me join the breakout room
Oh,
now.
sorry. Yeah, I can help you. Is that
Okay.
everybody?
Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to go join the discussion room now.
Okay. What about Larry? He should be in the breakout room, correct? All right. I see. Hmm. Dennis, okay. All right, got it. Join. Yes.
a breakout room? Okay.
But I'm unmuting myself. Oh, then you don't want that. Go back.
Hello, is anyone here?